They wanted me to pay for a new apartment. After calling me just mom's roommate, I booked a hotel for myself and left them the lease agreement. My name's Thomas. I'm 41, and I've learned what silence costs. After my divorce, I didn't date for a year. Not because I didn't want to, but because I'd seen what love could become when left to rot. A home filled with slammed doors, eyes that stopped looking at each other, and a child caught in the middle like a thread being pulled in both directions. When the ink dried on the papers and I packed the last of my things, I promised myself two things. I wouldn't rush into anything again, and I wouldn't let Zach, my son, be collateral damage to another broken adult relationship. And then I met Candace. She had this softness to her, the kind you only get after life's kicked your teeth in but you still choose to smile. Her laugh wasn't loud, but it was real. Worn down, a little hoarse like she hadn't used it in a while, but it still remembered how. She worked long hours at a dental office. 2 kids from a previous marriage. Aiden, 17, and Jamie, 15. She didn't talk much about their father, and I didn't press. I figured if she wanted to share, she would. I respected that. God knows I had my own ruins I didn't parade around. Zach was 9 then, quiet, thoughtful. One of those kids who hugs with his whole body and apologizes when someone else trips. From the beginning, he tried so hard to belong. Bringing Jamie drawings he made in school, following Aiden around asking about music and skateboards and games he didn't even understand just to hear him talk. I watched him contort himself into someone he thought they'd like, and it both broke me and made me proud. Candace and I lasted 10 months before deciding to move in together. Her lease was up. Mine too. We thought, foolishly maybe, that consolidating our lives would smooth out the friction, create something permanent, something better. We found a bigger place. 2 bathrooms, a balcony, even a little alcove where Zach could put his Lego sets without someone kicking them apart. I put my name on the lease. I paid the deposit. I covered the first and last month's rent. That was the beginning. After we moved in, I started covering everything else too. Utilities, groceries, internet, phone plans, car insurance, hers, not mine. I'm not a rich man, but I had savings and a steady job in IT. I told myself it was temporary, that we'd figure out the balance once we settled in. Candace would smile when the bills came and say, "You're the CFO of our little household." She'd kiss my cheek and walk away like that was gratitude enough. I laughed the first few times. It felt like partnership, like we were building something. I didn't realize then that our meant me, that the weight of this family, hers and mine, was already tipping. At first, everything seemed manageable. We had dinners together, took turns with the cooking. Friday nights were movie nights. Zach would pick some animated film, Jamie would groan, Aiden would disappear into his room, and I'd microwave popcorn until the house smelled like burnt salt. Candace worked late a lot, and I picked up the slack. Helped with homework. Drove the kids to school when the bus ran late. Grocery shopped. Did laundry. Folded shirts I didn't wear and washed bras I never touched. I didn't mind. I wanted stability. I wanted Zach to feel like this was home. But small cracks began to show. Hairline fractures no one else seemed to see but me. Zach would speak at the dinner table, and Aiden would sigh. "Does he ever shut up?" He muttered one night, loud enough for me to hear, quiet enough to pretend it wasn't meant for me. Jamie started leaving the room when Zach entered it. She'd roll her eyes, say he was clingy, if he asked her to play video games or help with his math. "I'm not his babysitter," she snapped once. Candace would shrug. "They're just adjusting." I tried to believe her. I pulled Zach aside and told him to give them space, to be patient, that families take time. But it wasn't just the kids. Sometimes when Candace introduced me to her friends, she'd say, "This is Thomas. Never my partner, never my boyfriend, just my name, like I was a guest who'd overstayed a visit." The first time it stung. The third time I stopped expecting anything different. Other times, she'd talk about parenting decisions with Aiden and Jamie like I wasn't even in the room. Screen time rules, grounding Jamie for sneaking out, Aiden's car privileges. All of it decided without me. I was good enough to pick them up from practice, to cook them dinner, to keep the fridge stocked, but not good enough to be consulted when they failed a test or got caught lying. Zach noticed. One night, after a particularly tense dinner where Aiden told Zach to stop breathing so loud, my son sat on the edge of his bed and asked, "Do they hate me?" I froze. There's no guidebook for that question. No chapter in a parenting manual for how to respond when the family you've tried to build is making your kid feel like a parasite. "No," I said carefully. "They're just different. Still getting used to all this." He didn't look convinced. Neither was I. More things went unspoken. Like the way Jamie called me Thomas, never Tom. Never anything more familiar. Or how Aiden only talked to me when something needed fixing, his PS5, his headphones, the Wi-Fi. I became the in-house technician, chauffeur, grocery hauler. But never a father. Not even a stand-in. Just the help. Candace never corrected them. Not once. When I finally brought it up, her voice was tired. "They're teenagers, Thomas. They say dumb things. It doesn't mean anything." But it did. It meant everything. It meant I was standing in a house I paid for, surrounded by people who treated me like I'd wandered in by mistake. And every month, the bills came. Every month, I paid them. Zach needed school clothes. Groceries needed refilling. The rent ticked forward, relentless. And every month, I wondered how long I could carry a family that never once turned around to see who held them up. I wasn't just footing the bill. I was feeding a system that ran on my silence. I'd sit in the living room at night after everyone went to bed, lights low, laptop open, looking at my bank account and wondering when the hell I had signed up for this. Wondering what part of love meant you had to buy your place in it. And yet I stayed. Because of Zach. Because he liked the balcony and the Lego alcove and the little dog park down the street. Because he still believed this was a family, even if they didn't act like it. Because I told myself if I just kept holding on, they'd eventually reach back. But the reaching never came. Only more silence, more distance, more weight. And in the middle of all of it, me, holding it up, alone. It was a Thursday, late April. I remember because the weather had turned, not warm enough for t-shirts yet, but the sun finally lingered into early evening. I left work early. Thought I'd surprise the house with takeout, Thai from the place Jamie liked. I stopped at the store too. Picked up orange juice for Zach and a case of that awful energy drink Aiden guzzled like water. I came in juggling bags, keys between my teeth, plastic handles cutting into my fingers. The front door was ajar. At first I thought someone forgot to close it. Then I heard the voices. I paused in the entryway. Their voices were coming from the kitchen. Aiden's sharp and amused, Jamie's half laughing, half whispering. They didn't hear me. I set the bags down on the floor. I don't know why I didn't call out. Something in their tone stopped me. Like hearing a joke you know you're not part of. "She's lucky," Aiden said. "I mean, come on, he's not our dad, just mom's roommate. But he pays for literally everything. It's like having an ATM that cooks dinner." Jamie snorted. "Yeah, well, better him than dad. At least this one shuts up and does the laundry." They both laughed. I didn't move. Something inside me slowed. Like my brain refused to process it in real time. The bags at my feet, the smell of pad thai seeping through the plastic, the orange juice sweating in its bottle. All of it stood still. I stood still. The food, the roof, the lights, the comfort, me. I stepped back outside without making a sound. Let the door click shut. I stood on the porch a long time before going back in. When I finally did, no one noticed. Aiden was in his room with the door shut. Jamie had her headphones on. Candace was in the bathroom, taking off her makeup. I set the food on the counter. Heated Zach's plate first. Sat down with him at the table and asked him about school. He told me he got to read his poem out loud. That his teacher clapped. That he hoped Jamie would want to hear it too. I told him maybe not tonight. I smiled through it. At dinner, I watched Candace thank me for the food. Watched Aiden inhale his pad thai without a word. Watched Jamie scroll through her phone like I didn't exist. Not one glance. Not one thank you. Not one acknowledgement that the man sitting across from them had just heard his identity reduced to mom's roommate and his worth to a dollar figure. I waited until Zach went to bed before I brought it up. Candace was washing dishes. I leaned against the counter and said, quietly, I heard what they said. She froze. They don't think I'm part of this family, I added. They made that pretty clear. She didn't turn around, just kept rinsing the pan. They're teenagers, she said eventually. They don't mean half of what they say. You know how they are. I waited for her to call them out, to offer a plan, to say she'd talk to them, to defend me. She didn't. Just, don't take it personally, Thomas. They're still adjusting. Still adjusting. After 10 months, after hundreds of dinners, after thousands of dollars. I nodded. I said okay. I said good night. I went to bed beside her, lay still while she breathed steady in her sleep, and stared at the ceiling wondering how long I'd been funding a family that never once saw me as part of it. 3 days passed. I didn't say much. Neither did she. And they laughed louder. Aiden left his dishes on the table. Jamie slammed doors. No one apologized. But I made a decision. Quiet. Clean. I paid the last month's rent online that Saturday morning. Pulled out my duffel bags. Packed Zach's things first, his tablet, his favorite sketchbook, his 3 best hoodies. Then I packed mine. Just enough. The rest didn't matter. I didn't owe anyone an explanation. Not anymore. I left the bedroom the way I found it. I walked into Zach's room. He looked up from his drawing, concerned. Are we going somewhere? Yeah, bud, I said. Just you and me. For a little while. He didn't ask why. He just nodded. He trusted me. Maybe that's the thing that hurt most. That this little boy had never made me earn his belief. He just gave it. Freely. Without suspicion. I set him up with his backpack and helped him into the car. Then I went back inside for one last thing. The lease. I printed a copy. Laid it on the kitchen table. Next to it, I placed the house key, my last grocery receipt, and a note I wrote in block letters like a ledger entry. Since I'm just the roommate, I figured the real family can handle next month. This one's on me. Good luck. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. Then I shut the door. The budget hotel I booked was small but clean. 2 beds. A microwave. A window that faced nothing in particular. Zach curled up with his tablet. I sat on the edge of my bed, watching the walls and listening to silence for the first time in months. Silence, when it's real, is not empty. It's restorative. The text started that evening. Candace, where are you? Then, is this about the joke? Come on, Thomas. This is ridiculous. Then, you can't just walk out. The kids are upset. I didn't respond. Aiden texted me too. Seriously? One dumb joke and you bail? Enjoy your motel, man. I turned my phone off. For the first time in almost a year, I slept without clenching my jaw. Zach curled into me like he used to when he was little, like we were the only 2 people in the world. And maybe we were. The next morning I woke early. Got coffee from the lobby. Brought Zach chocolate milk and a donut. We sat cross-legged on the bed and watched cartoons. No one sighed. No one told him to shut up. No one rolled their eyes when he asked questions about the plot. I'd forgotten what peace sounded like. By day 4, I had found us a 1-bedroom apartment near my job. It wasn't much: white walls, 2nd floor, faint smell of paint. But it was ours. Zach's school was nearby. I arranged the furniture myself. Bought a cheap dining table. A new sketch pad for Zach. He drew a tree with a tire swing and said, "It's our house now." Yes, it was. Back at the old apartment, the silence had turned to desperation. Candace's texts came more frequently, then fewer, then silence again. A mutual friend later told me they'd moved out. Couldn't keep up the rent. Jamie got a job at a coffee shop. Aiden started flipping used phones online. Candace was working night shifts again. The roof I built collapsed the moment I stepped out from under it. I never gloated, never threw it in their faces. But I didn't go back. Not once. And still not a single apology. Not from Aiden. Not from Jamie. Until nearly 2 months later, Candace finally wrote, "You were right. We treated you like a convenience. I'm sorry I let it happen." I read the message twice. Then I turned my phone face down. No reply. Not because I hated her, but because love without respect isn't love at all. The silence didn't last. The first day I heard nothing. The second day just those texts, quick jabs tossed off without real weight. But by the third it changed. The quiet had turned to noise. Not outside but behind that screen. Behind their walls. Panic is quiet at first. It hums under everything. But it grows. And eventually it screams. Candace sent 12 texts in one night. The last one came at 2:17 a.m. You can't do this. You're blowing everything up over something they didn't mean. But they meant it. That was the whole point. That was what she still refused to see. What had looked like a single joke to her was just the tip of the rot that had been spreading for months. And the moment I stopped pretending, the moment I stopped paying for the performance, the structure buckled. They depended on me. Not just for money, for ease. I made their lives easy, comfortable, predictable. And when I left, the lights flickered. At first, I only heard things secondhand. Through friends. Through acquaintances. Candace wasn't posting on social media anymore. No Sunday brunch photos. No stories of family night. Just vanished. I knew why. The rent alone on that apartment was nearly $2,000. Then car insurance. Groceries. Streaming services. All those little luxuries they'd never noticed I covered until they started disappearing. One friend, Megan, someone I barely knew but had once helped move a couch, texted me randomly. Are you guys okay? Candace mentioned you were taking some space? Space. That's what she called it. As if I were orbiting her life like a satellite, waiting to be pulled back in. Another message, this time from someone on Zach's school committee. Heard Jamie started working at Brewbench. That's got to be hard with her school schedule. It had big asterisk N. No more free rides. No more silent handouts. No more CFO of the house. I had shut the account. And now the debt collectors of real life were knocking. I didn't say a word. Zach asked about them sometimes. Not with bitterness, just confusion. Do you think Jamie hates me? No, I said. I think she doesn't know how to be kind when she's uncomfortable. He accepted that. Kids do. They carry our failures quietly. He didn't ask about Aiden much, but he did ask about Candace. Do you think she misses us? And that one I didn't have an answer for, because I didn't know if she missed us, or just missed what I used to do for her. After 2 weeks, Aiden texted again. Guess you're proud of yourself. Hope the motel breakfast is good. I almost laughed. By then, Zach and I had been in our own apartment for over a week. Small kitchen, bright light in the morning, cheap furniture that didn't carry anyone else's memories. I had a morning routine, coffee on the balcony, toast and peanut butter. Zach drawing at the table. It was quiet. It was peaceful. It was ours. Aiden's message was proof of what he missed. Control. Comfort. The idea that no matter how disrespectful he was, the bills would still get paid. That smugness kids wear when they've never had to see the invoice. But now he was seeing it. Another week passed. Then came a different kind of text. Candace. The landlord says we're late. Can you just cover it this once? I'll pay you back. I didn't reply. Could've pointed out the years she never offered to cover anything. Could have reminded her that I'd already paid the final month. Could have asked her if she remembered the laughter in the kitchen. Just Mom's roommate. While I stood in the hallway with bags of food paid for by someone who apparently didn't belong. But I didn't say anything. Because silence has a weight of its own. It makes people look at their own reflection longer than they want to. I went back to work. Picked up an extra freelance contract. Bought Zach a better mattress. Took him to the aquarium on a Saturday just because I could. I didn't tell him how much those things used to be weighed against someone else's needs. I didn't tell him how many times I skipped buying myself new clothes because Jamie needed concert tickets or Aiden wanted a new pair of sneakers. He didn't need to know that version of me. He deserved the one who finally chose himself. Then, 2 months in, came the message I'd been expecting. Candace, you were right. We treated you like a convenience. I'm sorry I let it happen. No excuses. No explanations. Just that. I stared at the screen for a long time. Zach was asleep, breathing softly, one hand curled around his stuffed fox. I didn't feel triumph, didn't feel rage, just a hollow kind of ache, the kind that follows clarity. They had built a life on my back, not out of cruelty but out of laziness, complacency, entitlement, and when I stepped away, the scaffolding collapsed, because no one ever asked what I needed. And that night, as the apartment sat quiet around me, I realized something that shook me more than anything they ever said. They never saw me, not once, not really. They saw a role. They saw a provider. They saw a man they could ignore until the check cleared. And when that man finally asked to be treated like a human being, with respect, with decency, they called it dramatic. They called it overreacting. But I wasn't overreacting. I was waking up to the truth that you can give your whole self to people and still be invisible to them. And once you see that, once the mask slips, you can't unsee it. You can't go back. And you shouldn't. Mornings look different now. No chaos. No slammed doors. No mumbled insults from across a kitchen island I paid for. Just Zach and me. 2 bowls of cereal, 2 chairs by the window, sunlight pouring in like it finally belongs to us. He sketches while I drink my coffee. Sometimes he hums. Sometimes he talks about dreams he had or stories he's writing in his head. He doesn't ask for permission to speak. He doesn't glance over his shoulder before using his own voice. He's free here, because I am. There's no silence I need to decode. No secondhand moods to walk around like broken glass. No more pretending we're a family just because we share walls. Some mornings he asks about them. Do you think they're okay? I never lie to him. If they want to be, I say, they will be. We figured it out, didn't we? He nods and goes back to drawing. It's strange how peace doesn't shout. It doesn't arrive with fireworks or apologies or big revelations. It's quiet. It seeps in when the noise finally dies. And once you've tasted it, you wonder how you ever lived without it. I haven't heard from Aiden or Jamie. Not directly. Aiden blocked me on everything, apparently. Jamie, I think, muted my number, or maybe Candace did that for her. It doesn't matter. I don't chase silence. Not anymore. Candace texted once after her apology. I wish things were different. They could have been. I never wanted to walk away. That's what people miss when they talk about boundaries, as if they're walls built out of spite. Mine wasn't. It was built out of exhaustion, out of respect for myself. Finally, after too many years of sacrificing everything for people who treated me like I was optional. I didn't leave because I hated them. I left because I remembered who I was before them. Because I saw what Zach was becoming inside that house. Quiet, diminished, uncertain of his place, shrinking to fit someone else's version of family. And I refused to let him carry that legacy. Candace used to say I was patient, that I was strong, that I was a rock. But rocks crack under pressure, too. Especially when everyone thinks it's your job to hold everything up, without ever asking how much weight you can bear. And for years, that was me. I was their infrastructure, the man who fixed the internet when it broke, who paid for braces, phone bills, and emergency car repairs, the one who drove them to school, remembered their birthdays, sat through parent-teacher meetings. I was the invisible net catching them every time their real dad forgot. I paid the emotional mortgage on a house I never got to call mine, and they never once called me dad. Not even once. Not when I sat in ERs with them. Not when I stayed up late helping with essays. Not even when I showed up every time without fail, when their actual father didn't. I stopped needing the title a long time ago, but I never stopped needing the truth to be acknowledged. The truth is, I gave everything, and they took it like it was owed. That's the part that breaks you, not the taking, but the entitlement. The way they made me feel lucky just to be tolerated in my own home. Like their acceptance was some favor I was failing to earn. People asked me after I left if I regretted it. If I missed them. I miss what I hoped we were. I miss the idea. The version I played in my head where we all figured it out, where the distance closed, where I stood at their graduations knowing I had made a difference. I miss believing that love, steady, committed, unpaid, would be enough to turn strangers into family. But that was the lie I told myself. The truth is simpler. You can't make people love you the way you love them. You can't fill every gap and expect gratitude to grow there. Sometimes you build a home, and the people inside it keep treating you like a tenant. And sometimes you stop paying rent on someone else's dream. Zach doesn't talk about them much anymore. The memory fades. Kids heal in a way adults envy. He doesn't carry resentment, only questions. And I answer what I can. When I don't know the answer, I tell him that, too. We take walks after dinner, watch birds, talk about everything and nothing. Sometimes he brings up the old apartment. That place was so loud, he said once. I didn't like the way it made me feel. Neither did I. Here we have rules. We speak with respect. We listen to each other. We don't pretend that silence fixes things. It only delays them. I'm still his father. But now I'm mine too, because that's what I'd forgotten in all of it. That I mattered. That my feelings weren't optional. That love without dignity is a leash. And that the most dangerous lie I ever told myself was that patience would be enough to make them see me. I see myself now, clearly, without apology. I still get bills, of course. Still chase work. Still stretch paychecks. But now, every dollar I spend feeds someone who sees me. Every meal I make is shared with someone who doesn't roll their eyes. Every night I sleep in a place I chose, not one I was guilted into. And most of all, I stopped performing. Stopped pretending that I was part of something just because I paid for it. Because at the end of the day, money is just math. But love, respect, that's soul work. And I will never again give mine to people who don't look me in the eye when I sit down at their table. So here's the question I've asked myself every day since I left. Was I wrong? Was I wrong to stop paying for a house that treated me like an outsider? Was I wrong to leave before the rot took root in my son? 2. Was I wrong to say, enough, when no one else would? People call it abandonment. I call it a line in the sand. They call it selfishness. I call it finally breathing. So I ask you, if you stood where I stood, keys in hand, bank account bleeding, heart bent out of shape, would you have stayed? Or would you have finally done what I did, and walked out with your soul still intact?